with prospects within the same day, and just bear with me, 24 hours. Well, we want the same day. Number one, we've got 4 steps here. The first contact is going to be the same day. So if somebody comes in and tours this morning, say at 9 o'clock, we want to make sure by end of day that you follow up with them. It could be at lunch, it could be at 1, 3, 5. All we care about is that by the end of the day, you follow up with the people who have come in and taken their time to visit your property in that given day. Don't let this panic you. All I want you to do is accomplish 2 things. One, you're going to thank them for taking the time to come in and visit your particular community. And 2, you're going to see if any questions came to mind. And it might sound something like this. Hey Jackie, it's Traci Bild calling. She might say, hey Traci, how are you? I'm great. Hey, do you have a quick second? Sure. The reason for my call is I simply wanted to take the time to thank you for coming by our community today. I know there's a lot of choices and I just so enjoyed meeting you. And I wanted to thank you and just see if any questions came up during the day before they slipped your mind. That's it. There's no selling. There's no trying to schedule the next step. It's a thank you and any questions. You can do this. This has been a tremendous tool for our coaching students and will be for you too. If you can just do it and not sit there and be afraid of, oh my gosh, they just came today and you want me to call them today? I'm a CCRC. I know. I was on site at a CCRC and the competition called within an hour of the tour while they were on tour with our property. So you don't know what your competition is doing and you don't want to be the guy that's late for the show. So this is going to become a major competitive advantage for you because we know that your competitors are not doing this because they're not following up at all. If they're not on this call and they're not getting this training, they are going to really be hit and sidelined by this. This is powerful. And the other thing you might want to consider if you have a very strong collaborative team environment and you really want those move-ins would be to have the executive director make the same day follow-up calls with the people that toured his or her building that day. Think of the power in that by saying, hey, I'm the executive director here at Willow Heights and I understand you're in our building today and I didn't have the pleasure to meet you. I just wanted to thank you for coming by and quite honestly just see if there's any questions that maybe came to mind after you left. It will shock people because they aren't expecting this level of service. And they're also shocked that you're not trying to sell them something or get something from them. And if you followed our directives on the inquiry process and the tour in our last 2 webinars, they've had incredible experiences with you up till now that have really surprised them. And now the follow-up's beginning and it's not salesy, it's not pushy, it's very just relationship oriented. That's all I want you to do for the people who tour. So if you average 2 to 3 tours a day, you need to have 2 to 3 follow-up day calls at the end of the day, specifically with those people. So you're going to block out at minimum 15 minutes at the end of every day to make these follow-up calls. 2 things you absolutely are going to discover as you do this. 1, people are shocked. They can't believe it, but they're happy. They're like, wow, oh my gosh, like you're just calling to say thank you, which builds trust. Solidifies the relationship and endears them to you. And number 2, you're going to find they have a lot of questions, which historically when marketers make their calls, there aren't a lot of questions because it's a week to 10 days later and people can't remember what they wanted to ask. The average follow-up call from first visit to follow-up is 10 days for the first one. For the second call, it's another 14 days. And the third one basically about never happens. And if it does, it's another 30 days out. So we're talking in the first 24 days after someone's visited your property, we're lucky if they've heard from you twice. That's not good enough to fill your buildings and experience 0 lost revenue days. So on slide number 10, if you think about it, okay, so some sales counselors will follow up very regularly with the people they feel are ready to buy today. Think about that. And you all have had this. There's like 1% of your leads that come in that you're like, oh, this is great. I can get this sold and then moved in the next week. And that one, you're all over. But the thing to consider is so are your competitors. Everybody's all over that lead because, well, they're an easy sale. And they're giving us all the buying signals, and we're going to move on that. And it's nice because we need those easy sales. We really do, and it's great when they happen. But what about the 99% of the leads that come in that are not ready to buy today? This is really important. There's 99% that are going, well, I need to think about it. I need to talk to my sister, my dad. We need to look around. We need to put our house on the market. That 99%, if you follow the system I'm laying out for you now, that's going to be left to you, because your competitors are basically following up with that 1%, if they're following up at all, who are giving the buying signs that they're going to buy today. They're not following up with the people who are not giving those clear buying signals. Can you imagine the kind of impact just that little bit of information can have on your property? So if you expect of yourself or of your sales counselors to have a systematic process where when people come in to visit, they get a same day thank you follow-up call. Now, what happens in that same week, next week, and so on? Well, we're going to have an aggressive first 30-day follow-up plan. Now, on slide number 12, think about this. What prospects really want to know from you, and you know this is true, what they really want to know is, are you going to do what you're saying you're going to do after I move in? Or am I going to make a poor decision and have to pay the price and deal with the headache later? People are afraid. Consumer trust is down. People are already scared. They're leaving the home they've known for decades, their friends, the things they've depended on, and they're entrusting their care to you. So what they want to know is, can you be trusted? So then what we do as sales counselors is most will drag the sales cycle out very long because they don't want to offend anybody. They don't want to follow up because, boy, they wouldn't like that, and therefore they're not going to follow up with anybody that aggressively. These are the things we hear and our counselors share with us. And then also they're just busy or they're pulled away to doing other tasks. So the sales cycle drags out to be very long because we create the long sales cycle because we're not doing our due diligence and following up like we should be. So what sales counselors need to do is demonstrate very confidently that they can be trusted before the sale occurs, and it will happen faster. So to do that, we need to create what we have with every aspect of the sales process, and that's a turnkey system. One where you don't have to think, you just do it. And when you follow the systems, you fill your buildings. And those of you on this webinar or listening to this call who have utilized our various systems know that they work. What you have to do is work them, and that's the hardest part. So let's discuss those first 4 weeks on slide number 14. So what I want to help you do is create a multimedia follow-up campaign, one that you will be comfortable with. I believe that many sales counselors are uncomfortable with follow-up because they're kind of like just doing the same thing every time, calling. They don't really know what to say. They don't know how the conversation is going to go. They're just checking in to see how they're doing. And then because they're winging it, the call could go basically in about any direction. So we want to strategize follow-up calls. I'd rather you make 10 follow-up calls a day than 20 if they're strategized and you have a plan, than 20 that you're winging and there really is no plan because it's not going to be as effective. So slow down, strategize, and as we're talking about follow-up, you should easily, and I'm going to be nice here, but you should be making 75 follow-up calls a week minimally. And ideally, if you really want to be at the pinnacle of success and fill your building until it's full, you should be doing 100 a week. Think about this. That's 20 follow-up calls a day. Most of you listening to this are full-time sales counselors. How is it that you can't make 20 follow-up calls a day? Now think about it. If you're making 20 follow-up calls a day and you had a 50% conversion ratio on contacting, you're going to talk to 10. And if you have 10 people and 5 of them let you have an actual conversation, think about the impact that could make. And also, if you only had 2 conversations, odds are you'll get them to the next step, get them to attend an event, let you do a home visit. So if you don't make follow-up a priority and designate time in your calendar to make the calls, and if the executive director doesn't understand that the sales counselor needs this time and then hold them accountable to it, you're going to be in trouble. So for each building, the sales counselor should have blocked out in their calendar every day that they work, minimally a 1-hour call block to get their call times in. And what I challenge people to do is have one in the morning, first thing when they get there, to knock it out. Otherwise, the day is going to get away from them. So block out 1 hour in the morning. That's called your prime calling time. And what you want to do is you begin to make calls. Experiment with different call times. You might do 8:30 to 9:30, 9:30 to 10:30, 10 to 11. And as you're making calls, you want to document and identify what is the most effective time to call when you can actually reach people. Contacts, that's number one. And then if you identify, say, 9 to 10, to be a really great call time, you're reaching 40% of the people you're calling. Lock it in and book that in your calendar Monday through Friday or Tuesday through Saturday, whenever you're working, and you do not take appointments during that time. You make your calls. So if you're doing outreach in the morning, you might go out from 7:30 to 9, do your outreach, and then go in and do your calls. Or you might do your calls from 9 to 10 at home and then do 10 to 12 outreach. You want to really plan your schedule and then go into the community at noon. Yeah, that's crazy. But if you have a strong collaborative team environment, should a tour come in the morning that's not scheduled, your executive director or activities director should be able to handle that tour while you're busy generating activity and revenue for the company. That's why we've got to work with our team in a united effort, because it does take everyone to fill the building. So if someone schedules a tour with you during your prime calling time, of course take it and move your call time. I'm going to get back to the PowerPoint, but this is very important. Then what I'd like you to do is also have a backup afternoon call block. That's your backup block, and it might be from 3 to 4, 4 to 5, and again, you want to experiment and see what's the most productive time to make the call when people are home, but you want this as your backup. So if you did get a tour in the morning, you know that's okay. I'll do my calls in the afternoon during my call block. And that you always try to leave that block open, schedule things around it, meaning take control of your calendar. Don't say yes to everybody. If somebody wants a tour at 4, they'll be just as happy to do one at 3 or 5. People are flexible. You're the one that has to create the structure, because it's just not going to happen. What I'm saying here is if you don't get the call time in, you don't just not do it. You still do it, you just move it to the backup. And these calls consistently done over time will help you to fill your building and keep it full. Once your building's full, you definitely don't want to go to nothing, clearly. Then you can back your calls, your follow-up calls, down to 50 a week. The sad thing is we find most marketing directors, even that are, say, 75% occupied, 60%, they aren't even doing 50 follow-up calls a week at all. We see more like 10 a week happening. So if you're in charge of an organization, this is something you need to look at. This is a serious issue and costing a lot of money. If you're an executive director, your job of managing the books and doing your operations is much easier when you have full revenue capacity. Marketers, your bonus can be maximized by better following up with your prospects and the success of, knowing that you have filled this building with your team. So there's something in it for everybody, and most importantly, that resident to be that's sitting at home in a situation they shouldn't be in. Do it for them. But people aren't just going to come to you and buy. We have to facilitate the sale. So how are we going to do that? We're going to utilize mail, phone, and email. We want a multimedia approach. This will help the sales counselors with their level of comfort and feeling like they're calling with purpose, like they really have something valuable to say or do. And then for the prospect, we are in a multimedia society, so it allows us to reach them in a way and determine what they're going to be receptive to. We're not relying on one thing. So in week number 1, so if you had 2 tours so far today, then those 2 you're going to follow up with today and just do your simple thank you, any questions. And the next day, tomorrow, you're going to send a thank you note, handwritten, which most of you do already. So that's nothing new for most of you. You're doing that. Our industry is very, very good about the thank you notes. If you're not doing them, absolutely, they are critical to your close. And I would also recommend that you don't use, and forgive me if you don't agree with this, but I recommend that you do not use company logoed stationery and all of that. I would like to see you create some personalization by finding stationery that speaks to you, that represents your personality. I'm a boater, so maybe I would do something with water or sunsets. You may love to garden, so maybe yours has to do with gardening. It allows people to peek into your soul and understand what's important to you, which is the foundation of relationships. Handwrite your note cards. Do not put address labels on them. You've got to show that you took the time to do this. And try to tie in a detail from the conversation so they see it as a personalized note card. Doesn't have to be long, short, but personalized. The third day after the visit, what I'd like for you to use is what's called the follow-up to a visit connection sheet, all right? So I sent this along with the PowerPoint. If you don't have it, you can get it from Karen. It's also in our members lounge, which has all of our tools that we provide, actually tons of tools, and it's right there on the website, right side, scroll down. It's called the members lounge. So this is what happens in the first week. So I need to show you, if you're not familiar, what the strategic close worksheet is. I'm sorry, what the follow-up to a visit connection sheet is. I'm getting ahead of myself. So bear with me while I pull mine up. Okay, so this one says at the top, complete follow-up step 3, follow-up to visit connection sheet. So think about, you're the prospect. We're trying to demonstrate that we can be trusted before they buy. We are trying to help them because they're interested now. So we need to be very diligent now. Now, if you have a plan and it's relationship oriented, this is going to go great for you. If you're selling, you're going to have some problems. And it's weird coming from me, but selling to me is really about forming relationships. So the follow-up to a connection sheet, if you look at that, it's basically a connection sheet like I taught you on our webinar on the inquiry process. You're going to ask a series of open-ended questions, and you're going to listen, and you're going to tie back services, stories that relate to what the prospect told you. This is very different than calling and saying, "How are you? Just wanted to check in and see how you're doing today," or "Are you still interested?" which are the favorite phrases of marketers making calls, only because they don't know what else to do. Our marketers love this. So if you'll look, I remind you at the top, step 1, did you or the administrator do your same-day follow-up call? Circle yes. It's to remind you and train your brain of the system you need to be working. Number 2, did you send a thank you note the day after or of your visit? Yes or no? Then you go into this. And I challenge you, the next step, determine the next step prior to making the call so you know how to close. What is the next step? Well, if the apartment is for dad and the daughter brought him in today for assisted living, or he did not come in, excuse me, if the daughter came in but did not bring the dad, probably the next step, if you did not schedule it on the visit itself, would be to schedule an appointment to bring dad in for a visit himself. We're probably not going to call today to get the deposit. We need to be realistic here. So you want to have an end objective in mind. What's the next step? That's what you always want to ask yourself. Do not pick up the phone if you don't have one. And it's pretty easy. It takes a second to determine that. So, and then you're going to use our sheet. The reason I'm calling is I just want to thank you, for your time. And I know I spoke with you briefly the other day, but I wanted to see if I could just ask you a couple questions about your visit before it slips your mind, because I know you're probably doing a lot of research. They'll say yes. And then you're going to ask a series of open-ended questions like, well, may I ask, what was your overall impression of our community? And drill down. So what, if they say, oh, I loved it. Well, what was it that most impressed you, can I ask? Or if they have things they didn't like, can you tell me more about that? How do you feel our community compares to some of the other options you've been considering? And again, you learned in our inquiry webinar that you want to branch off. So you ask a question, but that's not the only question you may ask. They might say, well, I really like it, but I did notice that, it seems a little isolated. You guys are on the edge of town. There's not a lot going on around about there. And as I mentioned, my mom doesn't drive. And I'm a little bit worried that, she won't have as many visitors. It just seemed isolated. Okay. So when you say isolated, ideally, what's your goal as far as location for the property that you might choose? And why is that important? And how often do you expect to be visiting? And as we talked about isolation, I want to point out our walking trails. And you'd mentioned that your mother loves to walk. So you're going to start to build value in regards to the isolation piece. Of course, we want to find their needs and make sure it's a fit. That's what this will allow us to discuss and pull out. Was there anything in regards to price that you need further explanation of? Because we want to make sure they understand pricing, particularly if you're an entry fee community, what that is and what's refundable and so on. And then the last question is a great closing question. You do not have to use this. People that use it love it. Some people are just scared. I love this question. We use it a lot in our training. But okay, Mrs. Smith, I have one last thing I kind of want to ask you. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, how would you rate your level of interest in our community right now as we talk? I'm just curious. So it's how you say it. You don't read it like a survey. You make it fun. You use voice inflections. You're curious. And if they say, well, and what you're going to hear them say is, that's a great question, because what it's doing is forcing them to chronologically determine where you are amongst all your competitors that they've seen and really make them decide how much they like you. This is a good question to ask. It forces thinking. And then if they say, well, I would say you're an 8. Okay. The most important follow-up question is, what needs to happen to make it a 10? And this is where you'll know where this lead stands. Because they may say, well, I noticed, quite honestly, that there were a lot of old people there. I mean, they were asleep in the lobby. There's a lot of walkers. So by bringing that out, you're going to be able to address it and address it in a way that makes sense to them. If they say, sometimes they'll say, I just don't know. I don't know what needs to happen. Probably just time. Okay. So then you need to make impact and bring value and resources to help with the decision that they're going to need a little time. Don't be afraid of this question. Try it. If you try it, I guarantee you'll like it a lot. And then after you get through the connection sheet and you've asked these questions, branched off, asked other questions, drilled down, related back to them, and had a meaningful conversation about their visit and where they are and what's important, then you need to close. We always want to close. Now, you should have already had the close in mind. That may change, so be flexible. But you always want to do your 2-step close. Recap what you heard and utilize the optional close. Not yes or no, but a choice of 2. So in this example, we'll just pretend that the next step, in my opinion, was to get Dad back on site for a visit. So I'm going to summarize quickly because we're on a webinar, but so my close might be something like, so based on what you've told me, it sounds like you really liked our community. You thought it was very well put together. You just felt a great sense of home, like there's a lot of cohesiveness among our staff, and the residents were very happy. People were joyful, and I love hearing that word joyful, so thanks for sharing that with me. You also really liked our fall prevention program, and that's a real concern for you. One of the things that did concern you that I heard you say was that the age of our residents seemed a little bit older than what you expected. Is that correct? Yes. Well, if I go back, if I recall correctly, your father's 85, right? Yeah, he is. Well, the average age of our residents is actually 84, so he's going to fit right in. And it may just be a little unusual for you to see so many 84 and 85-year-olds all in one location, and some of them are napping, and some of them have walkers, and some of them are vibrant, and some of them are doing chai tea. But it's sometimes a shock to see so many all together. But for your father, that's going to be very comforting because he'll be around people who are like-minded, having similar challenges, good days, bad days. So I want to really make sure that we address that. Does that make sense? And then you'll see what she says. You might need to dress a little bit more. And then you'll say, so I've wrapped up my recapping and clarity, and then I'm going to do the optional close. Well, the next step would be for you to bring your father in for a visit himself so he can experience the community. And I'd like to introduce him to a couple of residents I have in mind that are very much like him, and that will be able to answer his questions. What might work best for you? Are you available by chance? Let's see, it's 11 o'clock. Are you available this afternoon or even tomorrow? What might work best for you? So you give them a choice of tomorrow or today. Actually, and if you word it, see, I did it wrong. If you say, would tomorrow, or even this afternoon work for you, it's proven they'll pick the second over the first option more often. But again, it's just a technique. We're not going to get it perfect every time, but I do advise you to try to remember that technique. And then you just listen. And he will say, you know what, I can't do today or tomorrow, but I can do Friday. Take Friday and do another option. Great, morning or afternoon. You want to give options till there's none left. And then what happens is this is like sliding into home base if you're playing a game of baseball. It's easy. It's not stressful for anybody. It's very conversational, and you are directing where the next steps go. Do not wait. Most of the marketers we're working with are waiting on the prospect to take the lead. Let me know when you're ready. Give me a call when you want to bring your dad back in. Great, but they're not going to do that. They just aren't going to do it. I have a lot of people that want my training. I would never say call me when you're ready, because I realize nobody wants to spend money. Nobody wants to take time. So I facilitate the conversation and the calls because that's my job. It's your job, the same thing. And then 6-12 months down the road, the company's grown, they have more revenue, they purchase more buildings, we're growing with them, everybody's ecstatic. Well, same with you. Now, 6 months down the road, mom's not fallen once, she's happy. She's dining with friends. She's, going to the movies. Her life is incredibly better, and the adult child is ecstatic, and you facilitated that. You've got to look long term and fight for your prospects, but with a methodical way that shows you really care. Everything we teach you is built around the relationship. You'll notice these first 3 steps in the first week of the on-site visit, there's nothing salesy about it. It's all about listening, responding, caring. There's no slick sales moves because you don't need them. The first one is a simple thank you, how you doing, do you have any questions? And the next one, they're going to get a thank you note in the card a day or 2 later. They're going to love that in the mail. Then the next one is you letting them open up and talk to you about their experience on site. You will feel so comfortable using this if you're a sales counselor. You're going to finally feel like you have something that will allow you to make impact and give you purpose in your follow-up. So that's in the first week. So then if you go to the second week, which is on slide number 16. So if you're using move-in, reps, and all that, after you do each of these steps, you plug in that next step that's to occur. So you might print out, we have a follow-up flow sheet at the end of this PowerPoint. It's in color. You can print it out, laminate it, put it in front of your phone, and every time you complete, so I complete the thank you note, then I log into reps before I leave, the next step, which would be the follow-up to visit connection sheet. And then once that's done, I go into week 2 and I schedule the next step. Do you see? It's a process. It's a system. So on slide 16, in week 2, after their visit, so you've done the first full week, now we're in week 2. Every week that goes by that you're not making impact, you're losing this lead. So I would like to see you mail a timely article, something that's relevant. So most of you got the email from me today that Good Morning America is doing a series on aging in America, helping people with assisted living decisions. Well, what a great reason to get in touch with your adult children and prospects. They need to be watching this series. So if you've not already created a flyer or an email, or called, this is a great reason to call your hot and warm leads. And if you're making 20 calls a day, hey, this is great. You should be able to get through all your hot and warms this week and send them the information. And what a great reason to get their email when you make these calls so you can send them the link to learn more about the series. That's how you want to be thinking. So you want to, in week 2, always provide, so you might have 3 articles. And if you're a corporate on this call, I would challenge you to make sure that you are providing your teams with this information because they don't always have time. If you give them the tools, they'll be more likely to use them. So you should research every month 2 articles that are fresh and current that your team can use in their follow-up effort. And then what will happen over time is you'll create a library. You post these on your website and you make them downloadable for people coming, and now you have this whole resource section. This is a win-win all the way around. So provide articles. So week 2, they get an article in the mail, or you could email it. Then you're going to do also in the same week your follow-up connection sheet number 2. This is the other tool I emailed you with your PowerPoint. And this follow-up number 2, if you look, it has all the steps again at the top so that you know what to do. It says, did you do step 1, step 2, step 3? And then you're going to just go into your connection sheet. The goal of this sheet, it's self-explanatory, is to book an appointment. It's what it's all about. But the method that is designed here has been scientifically proven for 20 years to help you book 1 out of 2 appointments or better. So follow the method, and let's see, yeah, on time, I can't go into this in detail, but basically you're going to say, hey, Mrs. Smith, this is Traci Bild calling. They're going to respond with a yes. Then if you recall, we spoke last week in regards to Willow Heights. Oh, yes, I recall. Hey, do you have just a quick minute? Sure. Well, the reason I'm calling is I know it's been a week or so since we last communicated, and I was just wondering if you'd done any more investigation into independent living. I know that you were looking for your mother or for yourself or whatever it was, and they'll tell you yes or no, and depending on what they say, if they say yes, you're going to learn what it was and have conversation. If they say no, you're going to go on to your close. And something like, and I give you the system parameters, I know that you were recently here for a visit, but really, it's very important to me that you, as part of your process of looking and getting familiar with independent living or assisted or memory, whatever you're doing, it's important to us that you experience our community firsthand, meaning that you interact with some of our residents, meet some more of our staff, taste our food, maybe even stay over for a night in our apartment or for a week, but really experience it so you understand what life is like here, and that will kind of help you to better understand assisted living or independent living. And I had something in mind that I thought would be of great interest to your mother or you, okay? And then you're going to give them a choice of 2. One is, I know that your mother has always been very involved in volunteering, and we're having a diaper drive at our community this weekend where our residents are going to be stuffing into goodie bags 10 diapers per mother with some other little things, and it's helping a physician here in the community, and I thought she might enjoy that. The other thing I had in mind was we have movie night on Sunday, and we're watching Hope Floats, and it's a lot of women that I think your mom would really hit it off with, and I was just wondering, which or both might be of more interest to discuss to bring your mom in for. So do you see, it's a plan, and it's conversational, and it's not yes or no, and it's not a retour. Give them a reason to come back in and tailor to something that would be of interest to them. And to do this, guys, that means you need a strong activities calendar for your existing residents. You need great events and reasons to call and draw people in. So when we're doing our coaching, not only are we providing all these tools to you guys, but we're also helping you with your events calendars, your weekly activities, because if you don't have these things, you're not going to have anything to get people in to do other than eat again. And I always say, get out of the lunchbox. You can only eat so many times at a property. Most people want to eat once, and that's it, because they're not sold yet. They don't see the value in coming back in. So let them use your pool. Let them come in and do Tai Chi for free for a week. Invite them to come in and meet the other principal, retired principal that lives in your building, because she's a principal too, and you just think they would enjoy meeting one another. And let your residents step up and help you by answering questions and being ambassadors. So if they object and they say no, you're going to go to page 2 and you're going to dig down and try to ask more open-ended questions to revive this and understand what's going on in their mind. And the goal here is, if you build the value, right, through asking these additional 3 questions, that you then can attempt to go for another close, because now you better understand where they are and you can repossession and build value. So this sheet is really powerful. I'm going to be quite honest. This sheet I'm reviewing with you right now was the hardest connection sheet I've ever developed. There's a lot of thought and process that went into this. I would advise you to just use it. Don't question it. Now you can actually pull this out with leads that are kind of drying up and turning from hot to warm or warm to cold. call them and utilize this sheet right here, and you can save some calls. So when you're doing that hour of calls a day, you have all these different tools to choose from. You can use them with your leads in any order you see fit, because what it's all about is asking great open-ended questions. Now, going forward with your new leads starting today, this is the proper system we found will help you advance people through the sales cycle quickly and in a very relationship-oriented way that's stress-free and really beneficial to everybody. Most importantly, your prospect. So the goal is to get them back on site. The sooner you can get them back on site to participate in something, to experience your community, the more likely you're going to be to close. The visit to, okay, so we look at visit to move in, first visit to move in, and then we look at total visits, which includes retours and all of that to move in. It's a double the conversion. And you imagine, because once you get somebody back on site twice, you have a much better probability of closing. If they won't come back on site, you need to do home visits as well. Just drop by with, take someone with you, your nurse, drop by, bring soup or a meal or delicious, cookies, something to show you care, even if you have to leave it at the doorstep if they're not home. Home visits work, absolutely work. There's data behind that. Now, on slide number 17, just a sample article, Funding Senior Living in an Economic Downturn. I mentioned earlier our Members Lounge. It's on the last slide of this PowerPoint, how to get to our Members Lounge. We have articles there for you already done that you can download and put in your follow-up campaign effort. And you can mail these or email them. I wouldn't give them out on the first visit because you need tools for your follow-up. But you might choose one to put in your packet and so on. Week number 3. Now we're entering week 3. We're about 21 days out from the first visit in that week. So in week 3, what I suggest you do is you have a couple different, 1 or 2 really strong testimonial letters, and that you mail that out, okay? Because it's a third-party endorsement. It creates trust. People may not believe you, but they'll believe someone else. So in week 3, with all of your leads, it would be standard that they get from you a testimonial letter from one of your very happy residents or adult children. Again, it gives a reason for the marketer to follow up and say, hey, just want to see if you got the letter from Mrs. Smith. Sometimes it's nice to hear from someone else what they have experienced through our community. So, and then also in that same week, you want to make that call to follow up and invite them to an event, or utilize a resident to invite them to an event. So maybe you're independent living or you're assisted and you have some resident ambassadors. Rather than you calling in week 3, we're thinking out of the box, have a couple residents that you incentivize with, extra perks or something off their rent, and they agree that they will make, up to 10 calls or so for you a week. And you give them the name to call, and just no sales systems, just have them talk to the resident to be and invite them into an event, just one-on-one. And it's a third-party endorsement once again. That's a powerful week, week 3. And then in week 4, fourth week, if the lead's not responding, if they've not agreed to come in or taken your call, and you know this is when it's happening, they aren't responding, red flag it. This is a problem. You're probably going to lose the lead. You're at risk, so do something. And what I recommend is the home visit, because the phone calls aren't working. Probably they're reading their mail. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they've had a health crisis. We don't know. That's why a home visit is great. If you're assisted living, memory care, we highly recommend you take your nurse, because it's a nurse's duty to look out for the best interest of the prospect. So while you're talking, they might, say, can I look in your fridge and look for moldy food? Take a look at their pills. Are they missing pills? If they have a little pill box, are they missing pills? The things that nurses by trade are good at doing that us people in sales don't have a clue to look for. But take your nurse if they're strong and want to do it. We don't want to drag them there and have them be miserable. It has to be a team collaborative effort that you're doing together. And I would do at minimum 2 home visits per week. And if you have this standard, then you're red flagging leads in week 4, and that's where you're going. Now, I know you have a lot of leads in the past, okay? You can't get caught up on, oh my gosh, there's so much to do, I can't do anything, what am I going to do? Just start today, with the leads you have today and move forward. Don't worry about trying to go back and implementing the system and inputting all the data of what needs to happen next with all your leads. Don't do it. Start today with what you have. And then use these various connection sheets I sent you to go backwards and, of course, start making touch with people. I would look 2 years back at leads. Those leads have probably progressed in their age. They probably need your services more. And just maybe spot check certain demographics. Call 20 leads from 2008, then 20 leads from 2009, and then maybe go back to 2007 and see where you're getting the best response. So, and the whole goal here, what I want you to get, I'm going to do questions here. If you have any questions, send it to tbild@tracibild.com and just put in the subject line question, please. But what's important to understand is that the emotional connection must start early in the sales process. The first 30 days is critical to your success. And what's happening is many of us are waiting sometimes 30 days just to make the first call. If you follow up like I just taught you in the first 30 days with your leads, you're going to do all the hard work on the front end versus the back end and get the payoff, which is the lead. And now you're getting the payoff for all the time invested versus trying to salvage a lead when it's really too late. You want to be heavy on the follow-up when they're ready to buy. And remember, they've already put off, calling you too late. We know people are waiting too long. They need what you have. They called you. They're a hot lead. All they want to know is if you're a fit, okay? So you want to implement the system. You want to, if you're managing people, you want to hold people accountable to what you've learned today. If you have software, as I talked about, you want to go in and do that exercise. We're starting today. You check a couple leads, and then you want to do that every week. And then the metrics to watch, you're going to look at your first visit to move in, or first visit to deposit, and then total tours and retours to move in. And that's the 2 conversion metrics as you want to watch and you want to see them consistently grow. I highly advise you to do on-site mystery shopping and then have the shopper not let the community know, of course, and sorry sales counselors, but this will help you, and actually track for 30 days, what was the follow-up like? Are they following up? We, of course, can do those for you. I think our on-site mystery shops are $325. They're very reasonably priced, or we can refer you to someone. We don't have shoppers in every single city. That's not really what we do as a core of our business, but we can do them for you. And then look for your monthly move-ins to increase. Let me see if we have any questions. If you can just bear with me for a second. Okay. So I'm just reading this here. What do I do when my company is generating 50 to 60 leads per week? You stand up and you say hallelujah. If that's per community. Every day there are new leads that need to be worked, and my staff is having a very difficult time getting back to follow up with old leads. And they have 1 salesperson. So the way I'm reading this community has 1 salesperson. It's 1 community. They're getting 50 to 60 leads per week. That is awesome. What's important is not how many leads you get, but how many you close. So in this kind of situation, what I'd be doing is definitely when they're utilize our connection sheet so you can better qualify, meaning emotionally and medically, what are their needs, and then identify always who are the top 10 to 12 most appropriate leads for your community that have the greatest probability of being closed. And so now your problem's not, we don't have leads. Yours is I have too many. So who are going to be my greatest opportunities to close, and then work from there. And I would, if your community's not at 98 to 100%, I would invest in a part-time person or someone else from your staff that's already there that is very personable, that could work a couple extra hours a week, and have them help with follow-up calls. We also do have a service that we do for clients. We're in the process of a huge project right now, and we can actually call all your leads for you, clean up your database, update it into reps, or you've got leads, or move in, and keep your leads current. And that's a very effective process. And we have a great team that knows my systems inside and out. They'll just say they represent your property. They're there with you, and they go right into the connection sheet, and they do what I just taught you to do. So what I'm saying here is you've got to have somebody following up with those leads. And once you're full, you might want to look at an expansion, right? And expand so you can take on those extra leads. But right now, it's prioritizing the leads and then getting somebody else to step in and follow up on the other leads with our system in place. So I hope that's helpful. That's a great problem to have, by the way. Okay, just seeing if there's there was one other lead question. What about follow up with old or cold leads? Okay, if and I know we're over. If you have to go, go. But if you have very old leads or cold leads, we have what's called an old lead connection sheet. Not appropriate. Some of you know it as the established relationship connection sheet. So jot those two terms down: established relationship connection sheet and old lead connection sheet. You can get these right off my members lounge. We're offering this for free. So we've always planned to make it a member site, but we haven't got around to it yet. So get it while you can. And look for that document. And that is a connection sheet designed to reactivate old leads. And that's one of the things we use when we do our database cleanups, as I was just talking to you about. If they're old leads, we utilize that, and we get people back on board. We get visits scheduled, get them interested in starting the conversation. So you'll like that tool. It's very, very effective. And that'll tell you exactly what to say on those calls. So make sure you pull that off the members lounge. Let's see. I'm just looking to see if there's any other question. We do have an archive of articles that I did mention this earlier, but if you missed it, again, that's in the members lounge. I do admit the members lounge used to be more organized, but we have put so much content on there for you. Everything from interviews and role plays with Julie and I to articles and training. Just get a little patience, look through there, but the articles are there. If you have any trouble finding them, let us know. You can email Karen at tracibild.com. But they're right there on the members lounge. Great questions, you guys. I'm just making sure if any of you have sent anything else. I don't see anything else here. So I just wanted to say, you know what? You can grow occupancy, guys. Literally, you can bump your occupancy by 5 to 10% in the next 60 days by implementing the system starting today. It's follow up with purpose, having a passion, making time to make your follow-up calls. You can do this. It's slowing down. It's having structure. If you have any questions for me, please don't hesitate to email. Also, two things. The next webinar is it's a complimentary webinar for owner-operator providers, kind of more that C-level executive or regional who's managing an organization. So probably if you're in sales, it's not really going to be your lingo and what you're looking for, but it is going to be for the rest of you that are what I just described. It's February 11th, is no charge, but it is limited. So you want to sign up for that today. Just get on the list to get on that call. And then there's the next webinar, the role plays, and that's right there on my website at tracibild.com/webinar. If you would like us to look at your sales and help you understand where you need a bump and where you need to put focus, we can do what we call conversion matrix analysis. We do it for free. We don't charge you, and we can get that to you within a week, and you'll know what you need to do, specifically having a plan of action to grow your occupancy and revenue. If that is something you'd like to do, please just email me at tbild@tracibild.com. I do those myself because they're very important, and I want to make sure I'm giving you the right direction. So I thank you. I'm very honored that you came on today. I hope you'll continue to come on these webinars. It gives me a chance to reach you no matter where you are, and that to me is very exciting because I am a teacher at heart. This is what I love to do. I love to change people's lives and help them to do better than they even thought they could do. It's all about the learning curve. My book, Zero Lost Revenue Days, is coming out the 1st of April. If you have had success with our systems, we are looking for great testimonials to put in the book, stories about what you did and what the process was like, good, bad, and ugly of learning the systems, and then what your success was and what you learned from it. So if you would like to be in the book, I do need your story pretty quickly. Just email me at tbild@tracibild.com. Keep up the good fight. Don't accept anything less than 0 lost revenue days, 100% occupancy with a strong active wait list. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.